Let's go to the University of Georgia. Guys, every time that I watch the Georgia Bulldogs play, especially during the offseason when you, see them in a spring game, I always walk away just floored at how talented they are at each level. And yesterday on the Ruffino and Joe show, I said this, and I'm going to repeat it. Guys, I have absolutely no idea where their weaknesses are. I really don't. Of all the spring games that happened this weekend, the one that was the most back and forth, first-team offense versus first-team defense, was the University of Georgia, and it's exactly what you want to see. I think Mikael Williams is an outright freak. And I think if you listen to Kirby enough and listen to what he's trying to tell you, I think that he thinks that Mikael Williams might be the best outside linebacker, best defensive guy, one of the best that he has ever had. He is a freak show. I think C.J. Allen is a freak show. But as much, and I'll ask you this. Let me ask you this. And this is to some non-Georgia fans, but even to some of the Georgia fans that might see this clip. When you think of the University of Georgia under Kirby Smart, what's the first thing that you think about? Outside of national titles and maybe outside of the bowl cut, it's interior defensive linemen. Well, on Saturday, somebody forgot to tell them. Now, what I've heard coming out of Georgia from just people on social media, and you've sent it to me or whatever, is, well, Blake, we didn't really run a lot of things defensively. Well, neither did you really offensively. You ran an inside post, you ran a couple of fades, you ran a couple of crossing routes with your tight end, and then you ran the football. You did a couple of things out of play action for Carson Beck. And quite honestly, your offensive line dominated. Now, there are a lot of times that you got pressures, and those are things that you want to see. But Carson Beck was able to get the ball out in time for it to not be a sack. Yesterday, what I saw from the University of Georgia, and what we talked to our good buddy Brooks Austin about, was the first question that I asked him when he joined us was, is the University of Georgia, what is their biggest thing that you're going into the offseason asking about or having questions about? And it was the offensive line. Well, those questions just got answered. Because when you're playing a defense that is as good as Georgia, and your offensive line is able to do what they did on Saturday, guys, if that was their biggest weakness, I would hate to see their biggest strength, which I still do believe that their biggest strength is the athleticism that they have defensively. All over the place. They are, guys, they are the most athletic team in the country. Maybe outside of Ohio State. I think you can make that argument. But I look at Georgia yesterday. Both first and second team offensive line, highly impressive. That was the first thing I wrote down. Mikael Williams, absolute freak show, batted down a pass, got an interception. Carson Beck was out there dropping dimes like his name was Tom Brady. Guys, he looked fantastic. Well, Blake, he had 2 picks. Well, he had 2 picks against a freak show outside linebacker defensive end that has a 40-plus vertical, goes up, taps it up to himself, and he gets a pick. And then C.J. Allen, that might be the best DB or best overall defensive player in the Southeastern Conference. But Carson Beck was throwing dimes. He hit Dylan Bell a couple times, so I think it's the ultimate Swiss Army knife, I should say, in the SEC. And by the way, they got a kid from Miami named Colby Young. He's a freak. Dominic Lovett is a freak. They finally actually on the boundary have weapons. And Trevor Etienne's emergence it was incredible. Now, I'm going to give you a hot take here. I don't think that Trevor Etienne is the best player that entered the transfer portal this past year. I do, however, think that there's a possibility because of the way that they were running the football on Saturday and the way that they want to run the football at Georgia, he might be the best overall impact to a team, without question. Because him being inserted into that lineup, look at him. He was an outright freak. Guys, we're going to talk about a lot of teams here. And the University of Georgia, I don't see a weakness. Maybe secondary, maybe. But it's tough for me to say secondary when you got a freak show outside linebacker making a play like that and then a linebacker making a play like that and say, well, Yeah, their secondary might have some question marks, but they got just outright Adonises running around everywhere. If you're in the SEC or you're a fan of another team in the SEC, good luck to you. Good luck to you. Oh, by the way, I saw a team yesterday at the University of Georgia that's pissed off. Because last year they got beat by Alabama in the SEC championship game, and a lot of people kind of just wrote Georgia off for whatever reason. Oh, they hadn't been as dominant as they were the last 2 years. Well, no shit. But that team yesterday, in a spring game, I might add, in a spring game, was pissed off. There is no coach in the country now that Saban is out, and now that even Harbaugh is out. The best culture of college football right now is Georgia. And the guy that spent the longest time with Nick Saban was Kirby Smart, their head coach. Guys, I don't know if we're not seeing a replication of what we saw the last 17 years with Saban, if we're not seeing it with Kirby. I really don't know if we're not. And I'm not saying that they're going to win a national championship this year. I think that they all could and are going to be my favorite to win a national title. But I look at them and say, I don't know what their weaknesses are. And I think they're the scariest team in the country. Now, Ohio State made a big push. Ole Miss made a big push in the portal. I think Miami is going to be really good. None of them have the overall talent that the University of Georgia does. None of them. So, highly impressed by their offensive line, highly impressed by the competitive nature. And by the way, just throwing this out there, you know, Kirby was in his post-game presser yesterday, or 2 days ago, excuse me. And, you know, most teams around the country don't play their best players. Well, Kirby's got guys that's walking up to him pissed off saying, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play. And other teams around this conference, around the country, a lot of kids don't do that. The culture at the University of Georgia, leaps and bounds, is better than everywhere else. He has established that because that's what his mentor taught him. And now he's establishing it. And to be real with you, how Kirby is doing it now in the day of NIL is even more impressive, if we're being honest. Because you just heard Nick Saban about a month ago say, man, this team, last year's team that I had, 80% of them, all they want to talk about is their name, image, and likeness. What am I going to get in NIL? Well, Kirby's got the best culture in the country during NIL. So the GOAT on his way out was, I don't want to say complaining about it, but he was complaining about it. Hats off to Kirby. I think that they're going to be the best team. Now, they face some really good opponents this year. Obviously, they got Ole Miss. They have Texas. But, guys, even Clemson, if I'm not mistaken, in game one. Guys, I think that they're going to win all of those. I really do. I think you have a team that probably should have been in the playoff last year. And to be real with you, even if Georgia would have lost last year in the SEC championship game, I would put them ahead of Florida State. Well, Blake, why would you do that? Because, guys, no matter what would have happened, if everybody against Florida State would have played, even though they played in the bowl game and some guys opted out, Georgia would have still smoked that ass. Still would have smoked them. That team last year should have been a playoff team. Should have been a playoff team. All right, let's continue here. Let's go down to the Georgia Bulldogs' biggest rivalry. Now, if you're just joining us, we will get to all of your comments. I am just trying to go through all of these spring